tip of a pin. What fits there, 2 milligrams of a white powder, is enough to end a human life in a matter of minutes. That tiny thing took more American lives in a single year than the Vietnam War took in 20 years of combat. Since 1999, 1,300,000 Americans have been lost to overdose. It is as if an entire city the size of Dallas vanished from the map. And here is the first strange thing about this war. It has no general, no army, and no peace treaty that could ever be signed. It is a machine that runs across 3 continents, fed by 3 countries that swear they are fighting it. And in this video you will understand why nobody can press the off switch. First, the real size of the hole. In 2024, the United States recorded 79,000 overdose deaths. The good news is real. It was a 26% drop from the previous year, the largest in recent history. More than 70 lives saved every day, but even after that drop, overdose remains the leading cause of death for Americans between 18 and 44 years old, ahead of car crashes and ahead of firearms. And the engine behind it has a name: counterfeit pills, tablets that imitate pharmacy medicine, sold on the street, produced in clandestine labs. At the peak of the crisis, 7 out of 10 counterfeit pills seized carried a potentially fatal dose. Today that number has fallen to 5 out of 10. A coin toss with the life of whoever swallows it on the other side. And the decline continues. The most recent data, closed in January 2026, shows another 13% drop. It is proof that the damage can be reduced. And at the same time proof of the monster's size, because even falling year after year, we are still talking about tens of thousands of lives. Now let us open the machine and look at the gears. The official story says this poison comes from Mexico. The real story is more uncomfortable. Mexico is the assembly workshop. The parts, the so-called chemical precursors, come mostly from factories in China and India. And here is the detail that jams everything. Those substances, on their own, are legal industrial products. In 2019, the Chinese government banned production of the finished drug. It was like banning razors in a barbershop. The final product became illegal, but the parts to assemble it remain available in any quantity. From 2021 to 2024, American authorities seized more than 60 tons of the finished drug, 150 tons of precursors, and nearly 10,000 pill press machines. American prosecutors went as far as indicting executives of foreign chemical companies, accused of selling the parts knowing exactly what they would be used for. And even so, the flow did not slow down, because this is not the plan of a government. It is an ecosystem. Each participant handles its link of the chain, profits from it, and none of them has a real reason to break it. In the middle of that chain sit 2 organizations that work as the heart of the machine: the Sinaloa cartel and the Jalisco New Generation cartel. Together they account for 84% of everything seized at the southern border of the United States. In 2025, the American government gave them a new legal status: foreign terrorist organizations. The same designation applied to international extremist groups. But do not picture a company with a boss and an org chart. Experts describe these organizations as crime franchises. Each regional cell has autonomy, builds local alliances, and pays its share upward. They control routes, bribe officials, collect parallel taxes, and have diversified into extortion, fuel theft, and illegal mining. In vast regions of Mexico, the ones who actually govern carry no state badge. The price of that territorial capture shows in those who try to tell the story. Mexico remains among the most dangerous countries on the planet for journalists, with entire city halls, police stations, and local councils operating under the shadow of whoever truly rules the region. And then, in July 2024, came the scene no screenwriter would dare to write. The most legendary figure of Mexican trafficking was handed to the Americans by his own godson, Ismael Zambada El Mayo, co-founder of the Sinaloa cartel, 40 years without spending a single day in jail, was lured to a meeting in the capital of his own state. The meeting was set up by one of El Chapo's sons. El Mayo was overpowered, forced onto a small plane, and only touched ground on American soil, straight into a Texas cell. The betrayal split the cartel in half. Since September 2024, the two factions, El Chapo's heirs on one side and El Mayo's loyalists on the other, have waged open war through the streets of Culiacan. The dispute is so territorial that bodies appear marked with symbols, a pizza slice for one side, a sombrero for the other. The city became a board where every corner has an owner. And here comes the fact that matters for our question. Even with the most powerful cartel in the hemisphere at war with itself, the flow of drugs to the north did not stop. If betrayal did not switch off the machine, the most drastic option of all remained, cutting off the other monster's head. And that is exactly what happened in February 2026. The most wanted man on the planet, El Mencho, leader of the Jalisco cartel, carried a $15 million reward on his head and had lived like a ghost for more than a decade. American intelligence and the Mexican army reached him through an invisible thread. They tracked a trusted associate linked to his partner all the way to a luxury-gated community with a golf course in the Jalisco highlands. In the early hours of a Sunday, special forces surrounded the property. Gunfire broke out. He tried to escape through the woods with his security detail, was wounded and did not survive the trip to the capital. The cartel's response was a show of force that stopped the country. 250 road blockades across 20 states, vehicles set on fire, airports canceling flights, and a bounty offered for every soldier taken down. 25 National Guard soldiers did not come home that weekend. It was the hardest blow against a crime boss since Pablo Escobar, 33 years earlier. And notice the detail of the manhunt. It was not a satellite or a supercomputer that found the decade-long ghost. It was human routine, the invisible thread of personal ties, the one thing not even the most paranoid criminal in the world can encrypt. And now the part that answers the question in the title. What happened to the cartel after losing its supreme boss? The answer arrived within weeks. Almost nothing. Intelligence reports pointed to El Mencho's stepson as the new leader, an internal rival who tried to seize power by mobilizing men and weapons, was captured weeks later. The structure kept operating. Experts explain why. These organizations are not pyramids, they are networks. Cutting the head off a network does not kill it. Each cell keeps doing what it always did, and a new node takes over coordination. A former member of a rival group summed up in one sentence what the violence of those days meant. It was the inauguration of the next leader, and while the factions reorganize, the roots adapt like water. With pressure on the northern border, the drug path moved south, crossing Brazil, Paraguay, and Argentina toward other markets. You take out the king, arrest the traitor, close the route. The machine recalculates in days, like a traffic app. That is its nature, and the machine is not just resisting, it is cloning itself. In recent years, Mexican cartels have opened branches on 3 continents. In Europe, they set up synthetic drug labs in the Netherlands, Belgium, Spain, and the east of the continent, teaching the Mexican method to local operators. In Africa, the same expansion, facilities in Nigeria, South Africa, and Kenya. In Oceania, the Mexicans have already overtaken the Asian groups that once ruled the local market, and the cloning mechanism is a business detail. When a cartel enters a new country, it pays local partners in product, not in cash. The local partner needs to turn that product into money, and for that it needs to create consumers where there were none. The country that was only a corridor becomes a market. Local violence grows with it. The franchise settles in. The adaptation goes as far as swapping the product itself. Recent reports show organizations scaling back their bet on the synthetic opioid precisely because of the attention it drew and shifting to other drugs. The machine has no attachment. It sells whatever brings profit with less risk. It is the globalization of chaos, exported with the same efficiency as any multinational. In the end, two countries are left paying the same bill in different currencies. Mexico pays in blood, around 30,000 lives a year, with entire states where the violence rate passes 100 per 100,000 inhabitants, the level of a war zone. The United States pays in money and in people, an estimated cost of $2.7 trillion in a single year. That is comparable to the entire gross domestic product of Brazil, evaporating annually. And the detail that dismantles the most obvious solution: the vast majority of the drug does not cross the desert in the dead of night. It enters through official border crossings, hidden in passenger cars, most often driven by American citizens. There is no wall high enough for a problem that walks through the front door. There is no military operation that can eliminate a headless network. And there is no seizure that matters when the next shipment is already on the road. China supplies the parts because it is a legal chemical business. Mexico assembles because vast regions have no alternative economy. The United States consumes because pain, physical or existential, finds no accessible treatment. Nobody pressed a button to start this machine, and that is why there is no button to turn it off. They eliminated the most wanted man in the world, and it did not even slow down. This is the war nobody wins, because it is not a war, it is a system, and a system does not surrender, does not negotiate, and does not sign peace treaties. It simply keeps running.